Hello and welcome back to Supposedly Fun. My name is Greg. I am here to do my Pulitzer Prize for Fiction 2023 reaction video. I had done a sort of introduction to this morning, and then it ended up really not being in the spirit of the way the rest of the day went. I am just totally mind blown. Like that emoji of the head blowing up, that is me about the announcement. And you'll see that. So basically, I managed to film my reaction as they announced it, and then everything kind of spun from there. So instead of doing the video that I thought I was going to do today, I just kind of went off and did my own thing, and that is what you're going to watch right now. So we're going to start with me getting ready for the announcement, being really excited and nervous because I predicted Trust by Hernan Diaz would win, but I wanted Demon Copperhead for Barbara Kingsolver to win. People are already commenting on my Pulitzer predictions video to talk about how hilariously that aged. Yeah. So you're going to see it live. It's going to be messy because I get really excited once the announcement happens, and we'll go from there. All right, so we are in the middle of the announcement of the prizes right now. We should be wrapping up the journalism categories. There has already been one pleasant surprise for me. The winner of the Criticism Award was someone who wrote an article called Hanya's Boys about Hanya Yanagihara and how she kind of uses gay men in her work, and I am so excited about that win. There was also a tie for the category of local reporting, and right now they are announcing the winner of the Public Service Prize. It went to the Associated Press. I don't know if they have any other journalism categories, but we are probably about to pivot into arts and letters. Yep, we're going to pivot to letters, drama, and music, and I'm guessing fiction is going to be last. Here we go with the history. I'm so stressed still. I'm like freaking out because I just really want Demon Copperhead to win, and we're so close to finding out. Now we get to biography, and I'm so stressed because we're getting closer. We're getting closer. Boy, are we getting closer. Oh, we're getting close. Memoir or autobiography is next. And I think there's also poetry and music. And then, okay, there's a general nonfiction, poetry, music, and then we should be getting to fiction. I'm looking at the list of prize winners from last year to try to gauge. So, Stay True by Huatsu was the winner of the memoir or autobiography category. That was also pretty consistently on year-end best of lists last year. So that is exciting. I had been thinking about reading it, and somehow it dropped off of my list, and maybe I should think about working my way back to it. We're into poetry. I can guarantee I won't know any of these people, but I am just so stressed. I need to breathe. I need to breathe. Just breathe. But I really hope it wins. I really hope it wins. The winner for poetry is Then the War and Selected Poems 2007 through 2020 by Carl Phillips. I really want this to win. I really want it to win. All right, we're getting really close now. Really close. All right, we're doing general nonfiction. I'm trying not to freak out because we're getting close. I'm freaking out. Oh, my goodness. I'm sorry. I know I should be talking about what's happening a little bit more, but I am just so nervous. I can't even focus or pay attention. They're doing music right now, and I think that's the last one before fiction. Oh. I can't even pay attention to what's a finalist for music, but I think we're here. I think that's the next one. Oh. You wait a whole year, and here it is. All right, well, they're doing the winner for music. Oh, I think fiction is next. Okay. For fiction. Okay, the finalists are Trust by Hernan Diaz. It's going to win. It's absolutely going to win. Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. Okay, it's a battle royale. What's the third? The Immortal King Rao by Vauhini Vara. I don't even know that book. All right. We're awarding 2 prizes in this category. Oh my God, I'm freaking out. Trust by Hernan Diaz. So my prediction, this is the first time I've predicted a winner in a really long time. I missed it. I've already missed. I'm freaking out. There are 2. Oh my God, there are 2. Oh my God. This...
In a country where capitalism...
Please let the other one be Demon Copperhead. Also, the prize goes to... Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver! Oh my god! A masterful recasting of David Copperfield, narrated by an Appalachian boy whose wise, unwavering voice relates his encounters with poverty, addiction, I'm reading faster than they are, institutional failures and moral collapse, and his efforts to conquer them. This is wild. This is wild. There has never been a tie before. There's never been... Oh my god. Oh my god. I am like freaking out. First of all, I am really happy for Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. You all know this. If you follow along, you know this. I am so excited about this. I didn't think it was going to happen. If you watched my predictions video, let me turn off the volume on this at this point because it's not going to serve any purpose. If you know, this was my favorite read of 2022. I'll put a link to the video where Joel and I talk about our favorite reads of 2022. I love this book so much, and I love Barbara Kingsolver. Hang on. Personally, I think Barbara Kingsolver should have already won a Pulitzer for The Poisonwood Bible. I have a first edition of it right here. I'm a big fan of her work, and she hasn't gotten a Pulitzer, and it just feels like her career has been building and building, and it hasn't been happening, and there is so much to love about Demon Copperhead, and it does kind of fall into a bit of a trend with Pulitzer Prize winners for fiction, because if you look at The Hours, which is the book that beat The Poisonwood Bible for the Pulitzer Prize for fiction, it takes the story of Mrs. Dalloway and sort of adapts it a little bit, but it's a twist on it. You have March by Geraldine Brooks, which is a sort of twist on the story of Little Women. And so it's not overwhelmingly common within the canon. I am freaking out. But yes, this sort of updating of a classic, a twist on a classic, it is something that tends to appeal, but also the socially important and relevant work behind it. The opening of the book is a letter from Barbara Kingsolver talking about why this story was so important to her. And one of the things I really love about Barbara Kingsolver, and I'll get to Hernan, Diaz, and Trust, is how empathetic she is, how deeply concerned with humanity, and she even started a prize that is meant to go to books that deal with those categories. And I admire her work as a writer. I admire her, and this just felt like the perfect moment to recognize her with a Pulitzer Prize for fiction, and I'm so glad that it happened. But in my prediction video, I didn't think it would happen, because in the years in which I have done a Pulitzer Prize for fiction reaction, I've usually tended to make my prediction with my heart, and it hasn't worked out for me. It hasn't worked out at all. But this year, I really wanted it to be Demon Copperhead, and I thought Trust by Hernan Diaz seemed like a better option. I'm going to put a photo of this now. Because, well, a lot of reasons. One, it just felt like that it was coming down to a battle royale between Demon Copperhead and Trust, because they were the two books that were most consistently in best of lists toward the end of the year. But I felt like Trust was starting to edge out because it was on the shortlist for the Booker Prize. Demon Copperhead was not. I don't even know if Demon Copperhead was eligible, falls into the eligibility window for the Booker Prize last year. But it just feels like Trust was getting so much more slightly more recognition, because they were definitely head-to-head for a time. They were both the New York Times best books of the year. They were both Washington Post best books of the year. I did videos on those. I'll link them down below. And it just felt like Trust was starting to run away with it. And my heart has been disappointed, as I said, in recent years. So I felt like I had to go with Trust as my prediction. And then as I've been thinking about it, and here's where I really think things have gotten interesting, and where I think we have a tie this year. I think I need to look into the book that was the finalist. I'm sorry. I'm really excited. I I think we get to a tie because there's a lot that is urgent about Demon Copperhead. It's not just the profile of the book. It's that it deals with the opioid crisis. It deals with systemic poverty. It deals with problems in the foster system, and it deals with the need for empathy and compassion, and someone who has the strength to try to rise above everything that's happened to him and form a life, which is something that happened to Dickens. And it's this powerful callback to a classic, but it has these social urgent issues. And like Charles Dickens, Barbara Kingsolver really channels that sense of anger and frustration at how these are allowed to continue, and just bringing up all of these issues. And the case with trust is, and I mentioned this in my last Friday Reads video, I feel like the past few weeks in the news have been making a case for why Trust feels like an urgent book. Now, I didn't really like Trust very much, but in recent weeks in the United States, if you're not familiar, there have been bank failures. There have been conversations about the debt ceiling and all of that. And it feels like all of that is primed to make a case for why Trust is a sort of urgent book. And then there's the fact that you layer on top of that Trust really heavily deals with the concept of truth and what is true and how you can know what's true, and narratives and who creates them and why. And that, of course, has been very relevant forever, but particularly since 2016 with the Trump presidency and all of that. So it just really felt like with the financial problems, bank failures and all that, it felt like that could make a really strong case for trust. And I mentioned in my Friday Reads video, I don't know at what point the jury submits finalists to the Pulitzer board, but it probably happened a while ago. And so you don't know if Trust would have gotten in before all of those news events happened. And I am freaking out. So you don't, I assume that the finalists were selected before all of those news items happened. And then you start to think, well, if Trust made it into the finalists, the news is making a really strong case for why the board should not ignore it. And I feel like that's how we ended up with two winners. We have two books that are really socially and politically urgent. And oh my God. I can't believe that it happened this way. So this is actually, in a weird way, the best possible scenario for me, because I predicted Trust, so now I'm right. And I think the last time I accurately predicted, let me pull up the list of Pulitzer winners. The last time I accurately predicted a Pulitzer winner, I believe, was Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead. That was the last time. That was before I had a BookTube channel, so I can't even point to it. My internet, I'm so excited that I'm not actually clicking things. I'm making the motions of clicking things, and I am not actually clicking on them. Okay, so the last time I accurately predicted the winner was the Underground Railroad. And before that, 2 years earlier, I predicted All the Light We Cannot See. So now, again, I have a win in my corner. But at the same time, my heart has a win, because the book that I really wanted to see win actually won. But now I have to put two books on my Pulitzer Prize shelf. I don't own a copy of Trust. I'm going to have to call Montana Book Company. They had a hardcover on Independent Bookstore Day. And now Trust just came out in paperback. So now I have to decide, do I want the paperback or do I want to spring for the hardcover? I'm trying to get hardcovers whenever possible, but I don't know. All right, so here's the thing. I gushed about Demon Copperhead. Let me talk about Trust a little bit more, because here's the thing. Trust is in 4 sections. I think only one of those sections really actually works to me. I've known a lot of people who have loved this book. So take that with a grain of salt. Your mileage may vary. But basically, in the first section, you sort of read a novel about someone who is a king of finance and his wife. And it sort of implies that this man caused the stock market crash that led to the Great Depression. And in the second portion of the book, you get a memoir by someone who is not the finance man, but is clearly sort of responding to that novel that you read in the first, or excerpts of, in the first section, to try to say what really happened and why it's absurd to think that. And then you get the third section is the one that really, really hit for me. It was, I think, brilliant. It gets all the points about finance and capitalism and how it drives our world and how difficult it is to survive in a... I'm sorry, I'm really not eloquent right now. I'm like freaking out. But it's about, it has the finance angle that people talk about with it, but it also has that angle of trust. And that's where it really comes into play, because you meet someone who ghost wrote the memoir that you read in part 2. And her part of the book is so good. And I actually loved that part of the book. And then the third part is a journal by the guy who wrote the memoir in the second part's wife. And I just think that all of the points in the book would have been there if you had gotten rid of the first 2 parts, expanded the third part to be the novel, and let that be. And the fourth part, I feel like you could have even folded that into the third part, but, you know, a lot of people like this book. Again, I just feel like there was only really one portion of the book, 1.5, because the fourth part kind of works. And that's it. I only really liked 1.5 out of 4 sections of the book, but it's really smart writing. It's good writing. Hernan Diaz was a Pulitzer Prize finalist previously. He lost to the book Less by Andrew Sean Greer. I have a whole video about Less I'll link it down below. This is incredible. This is absolutely incredible. I never in a million years would have guessed that there would have been a tie. You know, in my Pulitzer Prize deep dive on the Netanyahus, which I will also link down below. I'm going to link a lot of stuff down below. Maybe I'm probably even going to forget to do a lot of this. They have not updated the website right now, so I can't see what the finalist was. But I would like to. Let me see if I'm going to talk and I'll type and try to see. You know, actually, now that I think about it, the fact that there were 3 finalists and 2 of them won almost feels like a slap to the third book, because it's the only one that didn't win. But yeah, I never would have guessed that this is the way it would have worked out. So what I'm probably going to have to do is pause and try to find out what the finalist was, because I was way too excited to try to the YouTube video, the Immortal King Rao. Actually, that title does sound familiar now that I'm calming down. The Immortal King Rao. All right, so here is the page from W.W. Norton. If it will load, I have a lot of tabs open because of my Pulitzer stuff. Here we go. If it will load, I can tell you. The Immortal King Rao, a novel, one of Vulture's books we can't wait to read in 2022. It was on a lot of most anticipated books of 2022, not a lot of best. Yeah, the cover is definitely familiar. In an Indian village in the 1950s, a precocious child is born into a family of Dalit coconut farmers. King Rao will grow up to be the most accomplished tech CEO in the world and eventually the leader of a global corporate-led government. In a future in which the world is run by the board of corporations, King's daughter Athena reckons with his legacy, literally, for he has given her access to his memories, among other questionable gifts. With climate change raging, Athena has come to believe that saving the planet and its shareholders will require a radical act of communion. And so she sets out to tell the truth to the world's shareholders in an entrancing sensory detail about King's childhood on a South Indian coconut plantation, his migration to the U.S. to study engineering in a world transformed by globalization, his marriage to the ambitious artist with whom he changed the world, and ultimately his invention under self-exile of the most ambitious creation of his life, Athena herself. This seems like it has parallels to Trust by Hernan Diaz. The Immortal King Rao, written by a former Wall Street Journal technology reporter, is a resonant debut novel obliterating the boundaries between literary and speculative fiction, the historic and the dystopian, confronting how we arrived at the age of technological capitalism and where our actions might take us next. That does sound like a really interesting book. I can see why that got in there. Now, the really interesting thing. So I got totally sidetracked. In my video about the Netanyahus, I mentioned a sort of conspiracy theory that a lot of people have. And I thought it was going to come into play here. I think it may have come into play last year. I don't truck with conspiracy theories, like, at all, as a rule. Like most, I don't think this one is true most of the time. But basically, people tend to believe that the Pulitzer jury stacks the deck in order to ensure that the book that they would like to see wins. Because the way the Pulitzer is set up, you have a jury for all of the different categories, and there are a lot of different categories. And they submit 3 finalists to the Pulitzer board, and then the board ultimately makes a decision. It used to be that the jury could make a recommendation to the board about what would win, but I don't know if that's the case, because Michael Cunningham talked about the experience of being a juror in 2012. And he said that he and his fellow jurors were not allowed to make a recommendation. So I don't know if that's the case anymore. But so the idea is that people will stack the deck by putting in the book that they want to see win and then 2 ringers. And it's really difficult because if you go year by year, I can't really find a case where that is true. But I think it could have been true last year. I think the jury could have been trying to stack the deck for Palmares by Gail Jones because it's very different from the other 2 books that were finalists last year. It's just that the board may have chosen the Netanyahus, and there are reasons that they would have done so, but it feels like that could be true last year. So if that is true, and this is one of the reasons I don't think it happens anywhere near as often as people say, it feels like the jury probably would have chosen either Demon Copperhead or Trust by by Hernan Diaz. I am so flabbergasted. Still, feels like they would have chosen one and made it a finalist and then maybe put it alongside the Immortal King Rao or something else, and not had both of them. In 2011, it felt like there was a sort of similar scenario between A Visit from the Goon Squad and Freedom by Jonathan Franzen. They were like the big heavy hitters of the year, and it felt like one of them was going to win a Pulitzer Prize for fiction. And in the end, only A Visit from the Goon Squad was a finalist. And so it feels like if the jury was trying to stack the deck, they would have done so by eliminating Freedom. And, you know, maybe this kind of proves the point that when you do put the best of the best in there, it becomes that much harder to make a decision. And not being able to make a decision in the past has led to no prize being given. I think after the 2012 Pulitzer controversy, when they didn't award a prize, I don't think they could choose to not award a prize again. I just don't think it could happen. But so I think that also came into play where we have something unprecedented happen, where instead of them becoming deadlocked and just not awarding a prize, they made the decision to award 2. I'm trying to see if they announced who the jury is. It looks like they have updated the website. Okay, so now we actually know who the jury is. They don't announce that in advance. You only find out, oh my God. So Sabina Murray, professor of English, University of Massachusetts Amherst, was the chair of the jury. But listen to the rest of this list of the people who are on the jury. Britt Bennett, an author, I think she will be familiar to many of you. Phil Clay, professor of the practice of English at Fairfield University. Again, I think he will be familiar to you. He won a National Book Award for Redeployment. Hector Tobar, Associate Professor of English, Chicano Latino Studies, and Literary Journalism at the University of California, Irvine. Where is he? Right here. And Colson Whitehead, who has not 1, but 2 Pulitzer Prizes for fiction. That's a great jury. That is a really great jury. Yeah. I did forget something in all of my excitement. I wanted to I had pulled some books and that made a list of other things that I had predicted and would have been happy to see win. So I think let's take a moment to say a fond farewell to them. First, my beloved Night of the Living Res by Morgan Talty. My heart went to Demon Copperhead, and I predicted Trust, but in my heart of hearts, I would have been satisfied if Night of the Living Res had won. This is Linked Stories. It's been a while since a story collection has won, but Linked Stories seem to be a path to a Pulitzer, so I thought there might be a chance, but I love this book, and it would have been a worthy winner. It would have been on my finalist list. I think if I were doing the Pulitzer Prize, my winner would be Demon Copperhead, obviously, and Night of the Living Res would have been a finalist for me, and I would have probably made Don't Cry for Me by Daniel Black, my other finalist, which was never going to win. I know it was never going to win, but it's a fantastic book and a really beautiful story about fatherhood and race and sexuality and acceptance and understanding over time. And it's just a beautiful, 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 beautiful book. I also want to say goodbye to Nightcrawling by Leila Mottley. Very young talent. It's likely that if her career continues at this pace, she will be winning a Pulitzer of her own at some point. We also say goodbye to Stories from the Tenants Downstairs by Sidik Fofana, which is another sort of linked story collection. The Rabbit Hutch by Tess Gunty, and Didn't Nobody Give a Shoot What Happened to Carlotta by James Hannaham. Those are other good books. I think varying degrees. I would have loved to see Didn't Nobody Give a Shoot What Happened to Carlotta be a finalist as well, but they usually do 3. So I'm going to let my love of Don't Cry for Me edge it out in my own personal opinion. But those are books that were probably top tier contenders for me and didn't make it onto the list. And just wanted to shout them out real quick. I am going to take a second, calm down, call Montana Book Company and see if they still have the hardcover of Trust by Hernan Diaz, and maybe I'll start editing this. I don't know if I have much to add right now. The good news is, last year I had to look up the Netanyahus for more information because I knew of it, but I didn't really know a whole lot about it. And I didn't know anything about the finalists last year. This year, I only had to look up the finalists. I knew the 2 books, and I accurately predicted one of the winners. I would never have guessed that there'd be 2 winners. Never, ever in a million years would have guessed. You know what? There is one bit of business that we have to do, and I would like you to be here for it. So let's add Demon Copperhead to my shelf. I made a mess of my shelf pulling out Colson Whitehead's books. So I'm going to move this over, and Demon Copperhead is getting pride of place right there. Bam. All right, that was not a really good angle, so I came back over here to say goodbye. I'm just really happy. I'm not a huge fan of Trust, but this is kind of the best possible outcome for me because I do respect Hernan Diaz as a writer. I really want to read In the Distance, which was the book he was a finalist for in the past. And, woo! I am shocked and happy. I am really happy that Demon Copperhead won. I know there have been a lot of people who were not big fans of the book. I'll have more to say about it in the future. I have to do a Pulitzer Prize deep dive that talks about 2 different books. I'm just going to stop right here, and I'm going to edit this and post it, and if I have additional thoughts, I'll make last year I did a follow-up video about the Pulitzer Prize announcement. Maybe I'll do the same thing if I have more to add later. But I'm just going to put this out into the world and calm down and call Montana Book Company to get a copy of Trust, because I need to add that to my shelf too. And I hope you're as excited about this as I am. I'm sorry, I'm like freaking out still. And yeah, so as always, I really appreciate your time and everything. I appreciate everything. I'm so happy that Barbara Kingsolver has a Pulitzer Prize for fiction. And allow this to be a PSA. If you haven't read the Poisonwood Bible, do yourself a favor. Read the Poisonwood Bible. But as always, I really appreciate your time. And I will be back. Until next time, happy reading and happy Pulitzer Day.